I still hate intros. Fire Force Part 2, Episode 13. We're still talking about the flashback where Conroe got so injured. Fourth company shows up after the incident was over, and because of their actions, they want to induct Shinmon and Conroe into their ranks and form the 7th company. Conroe is able to convince Shinmon to join because if they had proper equipment for the incident, it wouldn't have gone so badly. Shinmon still doesn't really get along too well with the Empire though, because he was expecting them to get there earlier. Back on up to the present, where it turns out they weren't the only case of mistaken identity, but there are actually numerous misunderstandings causing mayhem all over the town. Even one of the twins is being impersonated by somebody else. Luckily, Arthur is around to drop the little fucker, revealing that it's actually an old man. We then get a look at the one responsible for the doppelgangers, a white-clad member named Yona. Him, along with the other white-clad members from before, Arrow and Haran, put their plan into action to kill 8th Company. Everyone has to take cover as they start taking fire from Arrow, so Shinra and Arthur try to pinpoint where the shots are coming from. Meanwhile, Conroe interrogates the old man to find out where the real Hikage is, but he transforms himself into an infernal, forcing them to kill him. Shinra and Arthur catch up and get into a fight with Arrow and Haran. For the first time, the two have to put aside their differences in an attempt to match the White-Clad's teamwork. Once they start getting the upper hand, Haran tells Arrow to run and that he's gonna buy her some time. He then eats one of the infernal bugs, hoping to get a little bit stronger to hold off the two. Episode 14. The people of the district are all fighting amongst themselves and everything is in complete disarray. Shimon then rallies the people around him and tells them all to start attacking each other, which seems like a dumb fucking idea. I guess the logic is that if they're attacking somebody, then it's a 50-50 that they're actually attacking a doppelganger. Meanwhile, Haran had turned into a special infernal called a demon. With the demon's horns, it bears a striking resemblance to what had attacked Shinra's family when he was a child. The demon proves to be too much for the kids to handle. Luckily, Shimon shows up to fight it instead. Shimon then flies up into the sky with the demon to blow it up with a massive blast so that everybody else nearby isn't injured. Arrow sees this happening, so she launches an attack at them in order to stop him. We then see that Shinra's flames have some sort of sense that is able to perceive Conroe's cries for help. This alerts him to the imminent danger that Shimon is in, and he is able to fly up and stop the shot from connecting. This allows Shimon to use his Crimson Moon ability, which causes a massive explosion and kills the demon. Episode 15. Arrow and Yona are both a part of the Knights of the Ashen Flame and answer to Shinra's little brother in Sho. Sho plans to win Shinra over to their side since his Adola Burst would be too valuable to waste. Over to the 8th Company, where we learn that Victor will be joining them to work as the company's head scientist. The company is in need of an engineer too, so Shinra, Iris, and Arthur are sent to convince a potential candidate for the job named Vulcan to join the company also. They go to meet with the candidate, but he clearly isn't a fan of the Fire Force and wants nothing to do with them. He's kinda stonewalling them, so instead they go to talk with Yu, who is Vulcan's apprentice slash errand boy. They're able to convince Yu that they're a lot different from the other companies, so he agrees to let them in, and we finally meet the engineer, Vulcan. Vulcan is in pretty high demand because other companies, along with Hajime Industries, have all offered him jobs. Hajime Industries aren't too happy with the fact that he refused their offers, so they turn all of the merchants against him. Now he can't get any new parts. Also a part of Vulcan's ragtag crew is the sexy ginger Lisa. Obviously, Lisa's gonna be in the running for the waifu candidates, but she's still hard stuck second because we can grope Tamaki without any repercussions. Suck it, Ginger! Anyways, they don't get to talk to Vulcan at all because 3rd Company's Captain Giovanni shows up and Vulcan goes outside to talk with him. We learn that Giovanni is working with Hajime and is the one that cut him off from the merchants. He goes on to threaten Vulcan with more severe consequences unless he joins Hajime. Vulcan refuses because obviously he doesn't want to work for somebody like that, and then as soon as he goes inside, Shinra has a sales pitch of his own. This somehow segues into Vulcan sharing a dream to create a new, better source of energy that can replace Amaterasu and bring back all the species that have gotten extinct, but literally nobody asked. Bottom line, though, he doesn't want to work with them. They then hear from Yu that both Vulcan's father and grandfather had both went infernal at the same time. Vulcan, of course, suspects that Giovanni was behind it because he was the only other apprentice to Vulcan's grandfather. As soon as the two died, Giovanni went to work with Hajime, which was forbidden by their master because of some history. Shinra's infernal sense starts tingling again when he picks up on Giovanni's bloodlust. Episode 16. Giovanni is revealed to be working with the White-Clad, and he sends 2 members called Mirage and Flail to kill Vulcan. Shinra was keeping a lookout for trouble and is attacked by Giovanni. He electrocutes Shinra in order to take him to Evangelist and convert him to their side. In preparation for their fight, we learn that the more Arthur feels like a knight, the stronger he is. With this in mind, Vulcan gives him a makeshift cape and straps a horse's head to his dick. Arthur kind of feels like a badass though, so his power starts to grow exponentially. That is until Mirage's glimmers, which is like an illusion thing, makes him realize how fucking stupid he looks. His power drops off after that, but he still tries to fight him. We also get a quick side note that Vulcan's family was actually the one that designed the Amaterasu. That's not all we learn though, as the Ginger Bay Lisa is revealed to be a third generation working for the Evangelist. She attacks Vulcan in order to force him to give her some sort of key to the Amaterasu. Giovanni shows up soon after in search of the key also. It was apparently hidden by Vulcan's grandfather, and Vulcan has no idea what they're talking about. Giovanni thinks he's lying, so he shoots Yu and says that he's gonna die unless Vulcan gives him the key. Episode 17. Hibana had apparently planted a wire in Iris, heard the commotion, goes looking for Shinra, and sets him free. Just as Giovanni located the key, Shinra makes his entrance and knees him in the face. Arthur's getting help from Hibana to deal with the white-clad members, while Shinra gets subdued by Lisa. Vulcan helps him get free using his creations, but Hibana gets knocked unconscious as collateral. Shinra fights back now that he's free, but when the fight ends up outside, he comes face to face with his brother. Even though he believes Shinra is his brother, he still uses his power to defeat both him and Arthur. Sho secures the key to Amaterasu, but Shinra and Arthur are rescued by Victor, who uses his explosive ashes to cause a distraction. We see Lisa is having second thoughts about joining them, but then decides against it in the last second. Again, Sho uses his power and gets ahead of their truck. This is when Joker intervenes and manages to keep up with Sho's movements long enough to secure the other's escape. Yu is then rushed to the hospital and everybody survives the ordeal. After that, Vulcan takes Shinra up on an offer to stay at 8th Company, but just as a guest for safety. However, while talking, Obi is able to win Vulcan over and he ends up joining 8th Company as their new engineer. Episode 18. Hibana, Kareem, and Conroe show up at 8th Company to compare notes on the Evangelist. They decide that they need to find the Evangelist's base and hit them directly. While Victor is out looking for new clues on where the White-Clad could be hiding, he runs into Joker. Joker is wanting him to find a new way to upgrade Shinra's abilities, because at this rate, he's never going to be able to keep up with Sho. Conroe also phones in some help from Shimon to train the rookies, giving them a little bit more combat experience. Shinra and Arthur are sent to train with him, while Vulcan is hard at work making new tools for 8th Company. While training, Victor makes the observation that when Shinra uses his flames, they kind of go all over the place. The punchline is that if he can learn how to condense his flames to shoot it in one direction, that should give him a nice speed boost. Back on over to Vulcan, who had made twin hover units called Tekio, which are pretty much flying hammers that Maki can control using her 2nd gen powers. Meanwhile, Shinra tries emulating hand motions that he saw Shimon using to control his flame. Shimon notices him doing this and tells him that it's called kata, which was commonly used by martial artists of old Japan. One of them is called Tiger Crusher, which channels power to the user's feet. When Shinra bends both his index finger and thumb inward, it condenses his flame just like he was wanting. Episode 19. 8th Company learns that the White-Clad members are hiding in what's called the Nether, which is a series of abandoned subway tunnels. The next day, 8th Company goes into the Nether to launch an attack on the Evangelist followers. Once inside, the team is attacked and separated by White-Clad using smoke screens. Iris gets stuck with Tamaki and an imposter posing as her. She can't find out which one's real because she's stupid until Tamaki's bad luck kicks in and she defies all logic to get randomly stripped. This confirms that she is the real Tamaki, and then the imposter just walks off. Shortly after he's gone, they are confronted by their first threat in assault. Over to Maki, who is targeted by flails, so she uses her new toys to fight back, taking down him and all of his subordinates. And then we hop back on over to Iris and Tamaki, who engage Assault and to no one's surprise quickly start losing. Tamaki's bad luck continues, and this creates an opening for Iris, who bashes Assault over the head with a pipe, followed by an overkill beatdown. Episode 20. We see that Hinawa is encountered by Arrow, and the two exchange shots between one another. Meanwhile, Victor was captured by a no-name white-clad side character, and he gets one-shot by Shinra using his new hand signals. Back to Hinawa, who needs to close the distance on Arrow because he can't even see where she's shooting from, so he starts to move through the subway cars. This only ends up trapping him, and she gets off an easy shot, injuring him in the process. Using his power, Hinawa starts amping up all of his shots, creating massive shockwaves. The only drawback to this skill is that he has to replace his gun barrel after every shot because it's so powerful that it gets destroyed. Hinawa is now pretty spent after exchanging so many shots with Arrow. He rallies just enough to get one last shot off using her flames to accelerate the bullet even more. This results in him finally landing the finishing blow and defeating Arrow. Even though he won, he is completely out of energy when Yona and Mirage approach him. Arthur then makes his entrance to get his rematch with Mirage and save Hinawa. Thanks to his training with Conroe and Shinmon, he is now able to see through the shimmers that Mirage was creating. Using his glimmers as a distraction, Mirage moves in to kill Hinawa. Arthur picks up on his presence as he approaches, allowing him to kill Mirage through a concrete pillar. Vulcan and Obi wound up together, and as they're searching for others, they conveniently run into the conniving but still hot ginger hard-stuck second place waifu Lisa and of course her sugar daddy Giovanni. It becomes clear that Giovanni is manipulating Lisa to fight for him even though she doesn't really want to, but she isn't sure how to say no to daddy. Episode 21. Obi and Vulcan are both at Lisa's mercy since neither of them have powers to fight back against her. They try to get through to her, but she doesn't seem to be willing to listen, so Obi takes some hits in order to place extinguisher grenades beneath her. We learn that she feels so obligated to answer to Giovanni because he was the one that saved her as a kid. Kind of a shitty father figure though, because as soon as she gives him an opening, Giovanni takes her hostage. He threatens to kill her unless Vulcan shoots and kills Obi. Good guy Obi tells him to do it in order to save Lisa, so Vulcan shoots him in the chest. Giovanni lets Lisa go and falls for the trap because it turns out Obi was wearing a ballistic vest that Vulcan had made for him, which saved his life. Who doesn't know that you have to force the person to shoot the other person in the face? If you're gonna have somebody kill somebody, you have to know these things. Vulcan equips some sort of penguin mask to fight and secure Lisa. Meanwhile, Shinra isn't looking so hot and starts hallucinating a series of cryptic visions. Once he snaps out of it, he can see footprints leading him somewhere. Obi also learns from Giovanni that Shinra is gonna start getting stronger because of his link with Sho. He also says that the Adola burst is what creates the Infernals, but doesn't bother elaborating. Anyways, Shinra comes face to face with Sho and the two instantly start fighting. Even though he's keeping up much better this time around, Shinra still can't counter Sho's power that allows him to stop time. This allows Sho to get the upper hand and he lands a severe shot on Shinra. Giovanni's goal was to get Shinra to Sho, and now that he has accomplished that, he calmly walks away while Obi stands there and doesn't do anything. Even after he had threatened Lisa's life, she still seems reliant on Giovanni and begs him to take her with him. Guess he's not interested, so he just leaves her with Vulcan and Obi. Sho then transports himself and Shinra to some other dimension in the last scene. Episode 22. We see Yona talking about how Shinra is with Sho now, just as the evangelist had predicted. We then meet yet another white-clad member in Haumea. Sho talks with Shinra and explains that the dimension they are in is where the Adola burst came from and was never meant for their world. The world is known as the Underworld Adola, or better known to them as Hell. Shinra gets his first look at Evangelist, who appears behind Sho, but then the two are suddenly back in the real world. We learn that Sho is able to steal heat from the rest of the universe, and as it cools, the universe's expansion slows down, which is how he makes time stop. Shinra speculates that Sho is able to do this using his Adola link, and if he can utilize the same link, then he might be able to match him. After a couple of failed attempts, Shinra eventually moves fast enough to make himself disappear from Sho's frozen world. We get a random look at First Company where a new phase comes out of retirement to rejoin the company in the Lieutenant Priest's third generation on Yongo. Random scene over and we're back at Sho, who reaches his limit and is forced to let time resume, where he sees Shinra appear and smashes into a wall. He was going so fast that he wasn't able to control it, and when he uses his speed the second time, again he smashes into a wall. Victor comes in to analyze the situation and states that when a body meets a certain threshold of speed, it falls apart. If it travels even faster than that, it could break down to the level of invisible particles. But if that's what's happening, somebody shouldn't be able to reassemble themselves after that. Theoretically though, using the power of an Adola burst, reassembling a body could be possible. Sho freezes the world before Shinra can move again, but is suddenly struck by Shinra while in his world. Both Sho and Shinra bounce in and out of real time while fighting, which pushes Shinra to his limit and he collapses. During the lull in the combat, Victor explains that Shinra is using his flames to accelerate to the speed of light, and that's how he's been stopping time. This tears up his body and breaks it into subatomic particles. Then by accelerating past the speed of light, those particles go back in time, and that's how he's been reforming himself. He warns that if Shinra overheats in the middle of that process, then he'll actually die. Episode 23. Shinra goes past the speed of light and back in time while linking Sho to his memories, showing him how how much Shinra cared about him and their mom. Sho breaks down crying, and Shinra seizes his opportunity to close the distance and give him some brotherly love. Although, when they get back to real time, Shinra had lost control of his speed and accidentally impaled himself on Sho's sword. Hameya makes her reappearance and tells him that they are collecting Adola bursts to create a new cataclysm and destroy the world, which we kind of already knew. Her power allows her to mind control her victims, which she uses on Sho to force his cooperation. Arthur and the rest of 8th Company make it just in time to save Shinra from being taken by Hameya. Thanks to Arthur's plasma sword, Hameya can't use her powers properly. Out of nowhere, an earthquake starts happening, forcing the White-clad members and 8th Company to retreat before the Nether collapses in on them. Shinra's still a tad bit injured, so they have to rush him to Special Fire Hospital 6, where the 6th Company's captain, Kyoko Huang, will operate on him. She uses her Rod of Asapius ability to aid in his healing, and he wakes up 3 days later. 1st Company's Captain Burns then comes to talk with him about the fire that happened 12 years ago. Burns goes on to admit to knowing that Sho had been taken by the Evangelists and withheld the information from Shinra. Shinra demands an explanation, but Burns wants him to prove himself with a fight before he shares it. Episode 24. During the duel, it's pretty obvious that Burns is still quite a bit stronger than Shinra. Regardless, Shinra keeps fighting until he breaks through his defenses, landing a blow on Burns' arm. This proves to Burns that he is now strong enough to hear the truth, so he tells him that the Evangelist has been active for around 12 years. White-clad members were sent to retrieve Sho because they knew he had an Adola burst. When Sho's powers were awakened, he caused the house to go up in flames. Shinra's mother sees the baby surrounded by the fire, and then she transforms into a demon infernal. Sho's Adola burst also caused Shinra's ability to be activated as well, propelling him from the flames. We then see that the Evangelist was at the house, and Sho's mom makes the mistake of looking at her. This causes her eyes to burst into flames. Baby Hameya and another new face in Sharon are nearby and reveal that this is why all of the white-clad members cover their eyes. In response to her now burning eyes, Sho's mom forces her horns down, covering her eyes with them. Burns arrived 15 minutes after the fire had started and retrieves Shinra, who is right by the front door. Hameya then uses her power to control Sho's mom and make her escape from Burns with baby Sho. Burns is able to recognize the Adola burst and the Adola link. He too had also lost his right eye in a prior incident when he saw the Adola world's flames. Burns lies to Shinra, saying that his mother and Sho were both killed so that Shinra would hate the flames and never use his powers. By doing this, the Evangelist would never find out about his Adola burst and come looking for him too. Shinra realizes that when he was in the Nether, he had seen his mother's demon with the horns over her eyes. This leads him to believe that she might be alive, and maybe he can find her and turn her back into a human. Shinra also recalls seeing the captain of 4th Company, Soichiro Hage, in Adola too. Conveniently segueing into the introduction of Soichiro's granddaughter, Asako Arg. Shinra then goes on to request that Asako introduce him to her grandfather, which she agrees to. I'm gonna be doing the future seasons, and you can find that on the left side whenever I'm finished with it, or you can check out all the Fire Force recaps in the playlist on the right side. You can also find the links in the description below, and the only thing I hate more than intros is outros.